so they ask you to find a number between these two numbers, and the one it starts with is 1/4 and 2/5. Now, in my math lab, they ask you to find all of these that would be in between there. So that's a little bit tougher than the one I have on the right. But the one on the right is the one you'll see in your quiz this week, and the one on the left is in my math lab. Now, if we're looking for numbers in between here, that's going to be our tough one. So we can think about it for a second, though. I know that we just want to get common denominators. Let's start with making them into 20. Since they both have a multiple of 20, let's start by making them into 20. So if I turn this one into 20, it would be 5/20. And if I turn this one into 20, it would be 8/20. So I have to find numbers between 5/20 and 8/20. Okay, so let's think for a second. Let's think of, just go through there. I know 0's not in there, so that wouldn't work. Okay, now, let's think about it this way. 1/2. So if we're thinking about it in terms of 20ths, 1/2 would be 10/20. Well, 10/20 doesn't lie between 5 and 8, so this one's bad. Okay, so I've got 1/6, so I'm gonna come back to that one, it's a little tougher. So then I have 7/10. Okay, so if we look at this first one, if we made it into tenths, dividing by 2, this would be about somewhere around 2.5 tenths. And this one, if we talked about tenths, would be 4 tenths. So I know that 7 tenths is bigger than 4 tenths, so that doesn't work. Now for my next one, I have 7/20. Well, 7/20 would surely fall in there. Okay, so for my next one, I have 11/40. We can think about that one. Let's turn these blue ones into 40ths by multiplying them by 2, and this one would be 10/40 times 2 times 2. This one would be 16/40. So 11/40 would fall in that range. And so then we have 3 left to try. Okay, so if we're thinking about it in terms of tenths, going back to tenths, because I'm going to go to this one next, 3/10. Well, this one's 4/10. And if we looked at this 5, if we tried to make this one into a 10, which it doesn't go evenly, but if you thought about halving it, half of 5 is 2.5. and half of 20 is 10, so 3/10 would be in between 2.5 and 4. So this one's good. And so then we just have these last 2 to check. Okay, so I'm gonna erase all of this scratch work. And it's just process of elimination. You just keep trying it and see. Okay, so I'm talking about 1/6. Let's think about it for a second. If we're talking about it in terms of 6, this is 1/4, so that's bigger than 1/6. Think about it like if you got a piece of cake. If you got 1/4 of a cake, that's a lot more than 1/6. So 1/4 is bigger than 1/6. You could even do it this way if you wanted to. Turn them into 12ths. 1/4 is 3/12, and 1/6 is 2/12. So since 2/12 is smaller, we know that's not in that range. And your last one is 1/8. Well, 1/8 it's over here. It's smaller than 1/4, and so it doesn't work. So your only answers are 7/20, 3/10, and 11/40. Now it's a little bit easier on this other side. If you're trying to find what number, you're only picking one from this multiple choice, and you're looking for what lies between 1/2 and 1/3, you can turn them into 6. Okay, so to turn this one into 6, you'd get 3/6. And to turn this one into 6, you'd get 2/6. Okay, so we can try that. I know that 1/6 definitely doesn't lie in there. Okay, so that doesn't work. Now let's talk about 2/3 for a second. If this is 1/3 and this is 1/2, okay, 2/3 doesn't lie in between there, so that's not it. so then we have two other ones to check. Now the next one that I see is twelfths. And so if you go back on here and try them in twelfths, I can multiply this one by 6 and I get 6 twelfths. And I can multiply this one by 6 and I get, by 4, and I get 4 twelfths. Well, this one doesn't lie in between there and there. So by process of elimination, this is the one that's going to work. 2/5 is between those two numbers. Okay, so we have 2 slides left to go. The next thing I ask you to do is put these in increasing order. Okay, so we have to put them in order, but the trouble with them is that they're negative. And that's the bad part, that they're negative. All right, so let's just deal with these two first for just a minute. Think about it on the number line. Here's 0. If you had a positive 1/7, they would look like this on the number line because 1/7 comes before 4/7. But when we start talking about negatives, that's bad. So here's 0. So if you're going from 0, you would have negative 1/7 and negative 4/7, and it would go in that order on the number line. Now this one says increasing order, so that means you're going to write it from left to right. I don't know where this guy goes yet, but I do know that when I'm writing it from left to right, I'm going to have a negative 4/7 always in front of a negative 1/7. So if I ever have a negative 1/7 in front, I can mark that off the multiple choice lineup. All right, so what I have to do is I have to put these together and try to find a common denominator between 12 and 7, which is pretty bad. That's a big number. If you multiply this one out, you'd get 84. So if I'm turning this into an 84, I'm going to multiply by 7 on the top and bottom, and that's going to give me a negative 35 over 84. Okay, so let's change a negative 4/7 to 84. So I'm going to multiply that one by 12 and that one by 12. That's a negative 48 over 84. And then I've got a negative 1/7. Multiply that one by 12 so that I get the 84. Negative 12/84. Okay, so let's put these on our number line, our negative number line. So I've got these 3 choices. So I'm counting off in 84ths. So I'd have somewhere a negative 12/84ths, and then I'd have a negative 35/84ths, and then I'd have a negative 48/84ths in that order, however many little marks. And of course you don't have to count all those marks, you just needed to put them in order. And that's how it would look. But the way that these play out, this one, this negative 48, that is negative 4/7. And this negative 35, that is negative 5/12. And this negative 12/84, that is negative 1/7. So that's how they would go from least to greatest, increasing order. You'll say, but the numbers are bigger. This number's bigger, but remember it's in the negative direction. And so since it's in the negative direction, that's why you had to write them in that order. Okay, lastly they ask you this: place the less than or greater than between the two numbers. Okay, so looking at this one, the numbers are kind of bad. Let's see, but what I do know, what I'll do first with this one, I'm going to keep this one as it appears. Let's make this other one, let's reduce it. That's going to make it a lot better. So if I reduce this one, it reduces by 2, so that's a negative 2/7. Okay, so now I can get a common denominator of 42. If I'm turning this one into a 42, I'm going to multiply it by 7. Okay, if I'm turning this one into 42, I'm going to multiply it by 6. Okay, if you're looking on a number line, here's 0. You'd have a negative 7/42 here and a negative 12/42 here. So this one right here is less than So if the negative 1242, which is this number, if that's less than, that means the negative 16 is greater than, and remember the alligator mouth always goes to the greater number. And that's how that one would look.